هل السؤال موجه لي؟ نعم يعني أعتقد إنه
Just to give you that question again, what do you make of the Syrian presidency's denial that Al-Assad has left the country or has been leaving the country?
Denial of Assad's departure of Syria is not 100% credible, because there has been very contradictory comments and reactions. There were some comments by Iran saying that Assad is not in Syria. So maybe this ambiguity might be deliberate by the Syrian side, because there are some news saying that the Syrian opposition that is supported by Turkey are now closing up near the Syrian capital Damascus, and there is almost a full collapse of the Syrian army and some kind of surrender of some units. So I believe that it's natural that Assad would be hid inside Damascus, so he might be hiding inside Damascus or left Damascus to some safe place. So the speculations would say that he might be in Tehran.
Okay, and what is your assessment of the current situation inside Syria? Of course, we have various reports coming from different sources. What's your assessment?
For sure, it's a very tragic situation. The Syrian state is collapsing. The advance of the opposition, the extremist opposition, is beyond imagination. And unfortunately, this is coinciding with some kind of a dismantling of the Syrian National Army. Nobody ever thought that the Syrian large cities would fall so quickly, despite what has been said, that the Syrian army has rearranged itself and it's doing defense activities, and there is Russian aerial support, and there is a lot of Iraqi militias coming to fight with the regime. But it looks like things are moving from bad to worse. Last night we were saying that after the fall of Homs, the opposition is 160 kilometers from Damascus. Now there are some talks saying that the opposition is something like 20 kilometers away from Damascus. So things are moving from bad to worse in Syria. The information leaked so far and recently is that there is some kind of initiative for some talks in the Asitana group to meet in Doha. And this initiative is calling for having presidential and parliamentary elections between 6 to 9 months from now, and the withdrawal of all foreign forces. And the foreign forces mentioned here would mean the Iranians and Hezbollah, as well as the Turks and the foreign elements that constitute what's called the HTS. So they want them out by maximum by the end of next year, but nobody knows whether this will go or not, and whether the Syrian president will accept this or not. And maybe the Syrian president still accounts on its allies, Iran and Hezbollah, but things are much worse now than any other time. Russia is busy with the war in Ukraine. Iran is more introvert, seeking its own issues, and Hezbollah is leaving, and the Israelis are beyond the litany for Hezbollah. So things are really bad, and there is a dismantling of the internal front in Syria.
And you mentioned the Syrian army there. The Syrian army has confirmed that it's engaging in a reorganization of its forces. That's according to planned strategies, they say. Do you think the Syrian army could achieve some victories in the coming period?
The rapidness of the advancement of the opposition and these extremist militias moved very quickly, and this indicates a collapse of the Syrian army. On the first and second days, we heard that these armed people moved from Aleppo and Hama, and then we got news that the army is redeploying itself and rearranging itself and reobtained certain parts of Hama. But after one day, we saw these extremists just rushing all over Hama and moving to Homs and Idlib and Deir ez-Zor, and this means that things are really bad and truly deteriorating. And according to the news that we get recently, those extremist fighters have neutralized great arsenals of the Syrian army, bombarding the warehouses of the Syrian army weapons, and getting a lot of the warehouses of the Iranian Revolutionary Army and the Iranian fighters and the Hezbollah fighters. They got a lot of intel about what's happening and who's there, and they have bombarded very precisely the places of the Syrian army. And in some areas, all the Syrian army troops surrendered. And despite all what is being said about rearranging the situation, redeployment of the Syrian army, it seems that all of this is not true, because the rate of collapse of the Syrian army is really quick, and the advancement is happening very rapidly.
And how do you view the Arab coalition's efforts to support stability and try and restore security in Syria?
For sure, there is some quick Arab response. There is some quick Arab movement to restore stability in Syria. All Arab leaders communicated with the Syrian leadership and expressed their support. All of them are pro a solution. All of them are pro getting Syria to be away from foreign interventions. Unfortunately, the Iranian presence, the Turkish presence, and the presence of Hezbollah brought all these miseries to Syria. Therefore, I believe that everybody knows and realizes that the situation cannot be improved except with the disappearance of Bashar Assad, except with the removal of Bashar al-Assad, because of the animosity between him and the opposition and between him and some regional parties. So if the president approves early elections that would be for the presidential elections and parliamentary elections, maybe things would be better by then, because there has been some Turkish allegations that Assad would not accept any solution and rejects the return of the displaced people, and Assad says nobody returns unless put to trial. So this has given more momentum to the extremists to advance more and to attack Syria more. But probably what the Turks said was not precise, because tens of thousands of these fighters are foreigners, not Syrians. Some fought in Ukraine, some fought in other places all over the world, and others used to be affiliated with Qaeda. So there is an Arab movement to help Syria, but yet Syria needs to help itself, and Syria needs to help itself first by finding a radical solution to the internal situation.
Now, the Egyptian Foreign Ministry has confirmed that reports about the Syrian president are inaccurate and not true, in fact. How do you perceive these misleading reports?
I believe that when Egypt speaks based on proper information that Egypt has actually got. But actually, there are some regional parties here and there have requested Bashar al-Assad to step aside, to step down, or to leave Syria. But till now, I don't think this came from the Egyptian side. I think it was part of some solutions laid on the tables in the negotiations table, and maybe it was part of some American demands to help ending the conflict. Because if this conflict extends more and more, and if battles continue more and more in Syria, things will be more dire, and maybe those extremists will go to other parts of the region And maybe this conflict would give the opportunity to some sectarian groups in Syria to secede from the Syrian state. And this is actually probable. And some of the areas in Syria are ruled by the locals, not by the central government. And we see the Syrian democratic forces, the Kurdish Syrian democratic forces, are getting pushed away from some of their strongholds. So there is a need for a movement from the Syrian leadership to find a solution.